For over the years, I have been asking one question: what kind of charm do they use to hypnotize Nigerians that made them not to ask questions about what is going on in their society?
Nigeria is tired, and honestly, so are the people. Sometimes I just sit down and wonder how a country like this can bleed so much, and everybody out there is acting so normal, as if nothing is happening. One family is celebrating football, Arsenal, Manchester United, blah, 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 while another family is identifying a dead body. One person is posting memes, commenting on other people's posts, assuming, judging other people's lives, following trends, everything is about yash and money, while another person is crying over someone they will never see in their life again. Look, I'm a foreigner, and I've stayed in this country, Nigeria, long enough for me to feel this pain so deeply. If I don't speak about it all the time, doesn't mean I'm not feeling it. I've not even been able to post my content the way I used to do. Because things are happening, the world is burning, and Nigeria is burning. And do you know the most scariest part? Is that this country is normalizing. In fact, this country is teaching us to normalize fear, suffering, violence, and silence. Silence is a silent killer. It's very dangerous. Nigeria doesn't need just prayers anymore. Nigeria needs people that will speak. Nigeria needs people that will care, truly care. People that will stop distracting themselves from reality. Or is it until it happens to you or to your family member? Something will happen, God forbid. That's when you come online and post it and ask for justice. But until then, you're acting normal as if nothing is happening. That fear is already normal, is already eating us up. Because the truth is, if we keep celebrating while Nigeria is burning, one day, the fire will reach everybody. So if you have a chance, speak up. Act. Do something. If I can be part of this, I will be. And I'm already part of this. Because humans are dying. Humans are dying. Speak up.
You know, when we speak out, anytime I'm making videos, when I am talking, a lot of people used to think that, why is Okocha so alarming like this? Why is he raising alarm? Like, is it not insecurity? Is it not death? The reason why is because I understand what it means to have a country. I understand what it means to have a pseudo country. That is a fake country. We don't have a country, we have a fake country that is not sustainable. You know, there is no one who will hear or understand what is going on in Nigeria that will not feel bad, that will not feel pain. If foreigners can feel like this about Nigeria, why are Nigerians not feeling the same? This is because we have been hypnotized. There is a psycho conditioning that have taken place, making you to believe that it is normal. And that is why so many people went to the extent to say something like, instead of P2B to become president of Nigeria, let the Fulani terrorists or the Fulani militia or bandits, let them finish us. Let them kill us instead of someone to become president. That is because these people have been psycho-conditioned. They don't understand what they are doing. They have been sold out. They have been condemned. Many brains in Nigeria have been condemned. And that is why influencers, politicians, and so many people use you people. They trade you people for business. They deceive you people. Easy to deceive people. Nobody's talking about the reality now. But I am becoming more happier now at this moment because, you know, when we started shouting, a lot of people were not queuing in because they never understood what we were saying. But I can see some celebrities are coming out to shout now. That is because it is touching them. I laugh. So, also, that was yesterday. I was watching Arise News. I saw this video of Omoyele Sowore repeating the same statement, saying that there was, or there is, not was, present, there is an evidence before the court that they are using to charge Mandami. Federal government brought the evidence, the DSS. And guess what? They brought it against themselves. That the federal government of Nigeria, under, Buhari, APC, that Mandami was funding terrorism. So this is government against government. Any kingdom that stands against itself will not stand. Haven't I been vindicated? You know, when we tell you that the federal government of Nigeria are directly sponsoring insecurity, people fail to understand the fact. You are afraid. You don't want to talk. You don't want to talk, but you are still dying. You are still dying. Pay attention to the details of what Sowore said.
So there are two tracks to that story.
Yeah.
One was that the Boko Haram people and some bandits did benevolently free some abductees, and the
Boko
government
Haram benevolent?
well, that's one part of the story, because I'm within the news circle. And then shortly after that, the government said, we went and freed 360 people. And in Oyo State, there was another, police boss that freed the sister and two kids of the former Minister of Power. So what I'm trying to tell you is that we had an Occupy Aso Rock protest last week. And when we were approaching Aso Rock, we found more soldiers that you probably had in Sambisa Forest. They came out and said, don't come near this place. What I'm saying is that these kind of pressures did put pressure. Maybe they're having negotiation, or they were there trying to do what needed to be done, but they hadn't done it because of their own internal bureaucracies. But we saw results. And it's not the first time we saw results. I don't know if, so a few years ago, you also noticed we had to protest over the abduction of some Kaduna State College of Education students. We did it to the National Assembly. It was very massive. The next day, suddenly these people are released. So these pressures matter a lot. But what I'm also saying is that, look, there's a root cause and effect to this banditry and insecurity you are seeing. Sometimes government has a hand in it, either by deliberately not taking action, or sometimes they are involved themselves. And when I say this, please don't be alarmed, because even officially they are accusing themselves of involvement in banditry and kidnapping. We've seen situations where certain partners across the world sent us names of terrorist financiers in this country and said, go and arrest them, prosecute them, we didn't do anything about them. And information later leaked or even was made available in the courtrooms regarding the former AGF, that he was actually aiding and abetting terrorism by taking bribes from some of them. He was charged for these offenses. But then the offenses suddenly disappeared, and they kind of dropped some of the charges, or some of them went cold. There's a lot of politics behind even trials of this nature in Nigeria. So, but what I'm trying to tell you is that we took action. And we gave them notice and said, look, there's a deadline if you don't get these people freed across the country. And suddenly, 360 people showed up from within the shadows. 316, nobody knew that we had that many people kidnapped in one mountain alone they call Mandala Mountains in Borno State. And then the police quickly found the sister of the former minister.
And you don't think that was coincidence? Knowing that sometimes these security operations take days, months, weeks of planning, coordination. You just think it's your protest, Occupy Aso Rock on one day that led to this release across the country?
Oh man, I'm telling you what I know, that if you do not put pressure on the Nigerian government, they don't do anything.
Okay.
So, and I've given you examples of why this has happened in the past. Yes.
All right. Speaking of pressure, again, you've been extremely vocal. You've said that President Tinubu should rescue those in captivity in Oyo State or resign. I'm very curious about this because, we know that given the nature of our constitution, if he were to resign, his vice president would be the one to step in. How do you think his resignation is going to revolutionize this war against insurgency?
The call is that if you're incompetent at your job, if you sleep at your job, you don't get to keep the job simply because we are not satisfied with your deputy. No, that's not the issue. What it means is that you're incompetent at your job, you are forced to resign. If the next person that takes over constitutionally is incompetent, we keep going until we find competence. That is what the call is about.
There was evidence, because insurgents who were killed, their telephones were probed, and they were in contact with security officers while they were operating. That is to show we have accomplices within the security forces. And that is why when people are being attacked, some instruction will come from above, whoever it would be, to ensure that these people receive the worst kind of treatment before the security forces would come. The people who are sponsoring insurgency in Nigeria didn't just wake up and then became insurgents or started to sponsor insurgency. It started and grew till when we got Sharia into our constitution. According to Sharia, Muslims will have to be the lords. You will have to submit. I will have to submit. Muslims who don't believe in that violence have to submit. There are rules. So since Sharia came in, insurgency in real time came in, because they have the right under Sharia to convert the unbeliever.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Sorry to interrupt you. Pardon me. The aspect of Sharia, the Constitution allows, correct me if I'm wrong, it is in the cases of inheritance, marriage, marital issues, disputes.
Those were the penal court thing which Sardauna had.
Yes.
The Sharia today.
Yes.
Why was Leah Sharibu taken out of so many girls?
That's what a big
Hold on. Why was the lady in Sokoto stoned to death? It's Sharia. So there are so many things that have happened which we can refer to, which are Sharia compliant issues. Many things have happened. Why do we have a parallel policing in Kano? It is because of Sharia. So, if you are in Kano, even if you are an Igbo man or whoever, and you want to trade your beer, you go and smash it. If you are lucky to go away alive. That is Sharia. So, sir, anybody who deceives you and said the penal code which we had, which the Sardauna accepted as a means of accommodating the Middle Belters then because of the Willings Commission requirement, is not what we have today. What we have today, adopted by the 12 local government, states in the north, is the true Sharia. And where they want and when they want to implement, they implement. Even states that are not as aggressive. Not long ago, was it about 2 years ago, my governor in Borno went to and said any hotel that they think was a brochure, quote unquote, how do you qualify a place? They smashed it and destroyed such plots. Churches are not allowed spaces in some areas. So what is that? Yes. So what is that? It is Sharia. So you see, we pretend. That is the problem with this concept. We pretend to be running a secular system in the north. It is no more that way. And this insurgency would not be there without Sharia. When we had the penal code, there was no such insurgency. There was no such aggression. There would not be somebody coming with a gun and say, Allahu Akbar, and attack others. It wasn't there. Under the penal code, it wasn't there. Under Sharia, it's there. And we cannot deny that. It is for the others to wake up and say, look, if you want to practice this, you have the right based on your religion, but you can't impose it on us. Let's think of a way of coexisting with this. And what is happening, or what is going to happen next. These people will say, let's part ways.
When you made mention to a couple of people who were, lynched, lynched, set on fire, and said it was because of Sharia, I was trying to disagree because I know the Sharia process will be, you take the person to face a Sharia panel, and then there will be witnesses called, just more or less like a regular trial court and all of that. But that was not the case. That's what I was trying to correct. It was just mob justice. Yes, maybe influenced by radical clerics. So don't respond to that. But let's go back to this insecurity. I've had northern leaders. Dr. Akib Baba Ahmed is a highly respected northern leader, a Muslim, highly respected intellectual. He attributes the insecurity from the north largely, preponderantly, and I tend to agree with him, to misgovernance, bad governance from governors, local governments, and even the president. Do you disagree with this?
Yes, people in power directs and determines what their people do. So in that regard, you can't disagree with him.
Do you disagree?
No, I said you and I too can disagree with him. Because if those things that initiated the Boko Haram insurgency didn't start from the political circle, allowing them to do what they did, it wouldn't have exploded to where it is now. And that is true, because leadership determines what the followership does. Good, fine and good. Even those who are attributing so many things to Ali Sharif, I look at Ali Sharif as saint compared to some people who came after him. Because though Ali Sharif negotiated with a religious group, which was at dead not Boko Haram, they were a religious group to assist him wrestle power. It was later they became Boko Haram. But how did they become Boko Haram? The same Ali Sharif went after them when they insisted on Sharia. He didn't want to be Sharia compliant at the time. So to that extent, I tell some people, I don't see Ali Sharif as Malimadu Sharif as the man who started this thing. Yes, he negotiated with these people to assist him to wrestle power, which they did. But he refused to implement Sharia. All the same, he had his own militant group, but nearly all governors also have theirs to ensure that they win election. So, sir, without the constitutional backing which we had in 1999 Constitution, many of these governors in the north will not declare Sharia. That is the truth. Because they believe now with Sharia, rather than the penal code in the Constitution, they can declare Sharia in their states, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can go to court, they will tell you Sharia is in the Constitution, and they have the right to practice their religion. Those then who went further to say, yes, in this system, we are allowed to persecute those who don't adhere to Islamic norms, and Christians don't. These things wouldn't be there, sir. So let's be plain and straight. We have reached a stage in this country where you cannot stop these people from practicing their religion. And it has been started in the Constitution. Sharia is there in the Constitution. 73 mentions. You can go and cross-check. There's no mention of Christianity or anything to say that you exist in the first place in the Constitution. None. You can go check people who have gone through the Constitution. So the issue is, how do we navigate away from this source of problem? Because it is already there. It is in the Constitution. And governors who have introduced Sharia, Hizbah, etc., will say that Sharia is in the Constitution and you cannot do anything about it because they are Nigerians. How do we navigate out of that? That is the question.
I'm sure our viewers will struggle, especially northern Muslims, will struggle to agree with you. Because I'll go back to the issue of bad governance, failure of leadership, according to Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed, according to pretty much everybody I've sat with. And I've been on this for years now. Sir, 20 million plus children out of school on the streets. You see them everywhere in the north. Children of school going age on the streets. Yes. Those are the ready supply, the recruitment source for all these bandits, terrorists, kidnappers, insurgents, name it. Do you agree, sir? I agree. There's no primary health care in anywhere, any villages, no primary health care in almost all the places. Look at primary schools. So poverty, sir, look at poverty. Poverty in the north is like 10 times worse than the rest of Nigeria. I could go on, reading out these horrific statistics. So I go back to it. Is it fair to just narrow down on the issue of Sharia as the lone causative factor for all these problems?
Thank you. The practice of taking children, handing them over to malams or to these mullahs to train, to travel
rather than taking them to school.
Listen, to travel with them, blah, blah, is still part of the religious practice. You don't go to my village, you will not see a beggar on the street with a ball in his hand. It's shameful in my tradition to even have someone who is physically challenged, whether even mentally, to see him on the street begging. Because in my tradition, it's a taboo. You keep your weak and feed them till they die. So, it is the practice in northern Muslim areas, and it is as mentioned, and as we agree, that yes, bad governance has something to do about it. However, let me put it to you. The politicians depend on these clerics for support. They support a person to become a governor. When they get to the seat, how many of them have the balls to now say, you cannot carry children around and travel with them begging here and then? How many of them? So in that respect, we'll say, yes, bad governance. Then another thing, people are producing children who they cannot support. You and if, I don't know whether you are Christian or Muslim, you are confined to have one wife. and how many children you can take care of. In Islam, you can have up to 4 wives. According to the rule, if you can take care of them equitably. Nobody cares about equitably. Produce children, you cannot take care of them, hand them over to the Malam, and the Malam travels out, they learn menial works, go around Abuja, who are the nail cutters, who are the cobblers. It's all this kind of children. Many of them have gone to school, many of them have not. Now, an alternative education has not been provided. Jonathan tried to establish Al-Majiri system schools. Go to those schools. Are they being occupied by Al-Majiris? You will find out Al-Majiris are not there. So, sir, it is not just government. Jonathan tried, but the system resisted. The system resisted. So, if these boys are used as cannon fodder for insurgency, it is not just government. It is the system.
Dr. Bitrus, let's make progress. We all witnessed the horrific atrocities in Mangu local government, Boko's local government, Bakin-Ladi local government, where entire villages or communities were wiped out.
Yes.
In what many have described as genocidal, including yourself.
Yes.
Yet, we have evidence that those villagers alerted security forces that this was coming, these people are coming.
That's correct.
And yet, security forces, conveniently did not show up before, and while those atrocities were being perpetrated, they didn't show up until after the entire place was decimated. Then they showed. What's going on, sir? How do you explain this?
There's complicity within the security forces. Simple. No, I mean, nothing other than that. You see, the people who sponsors and who sponsored this thing when it started know where they were, the level things have reached, to the extent that they can do something and even protect the aggressors. When General T.Y. said that they are colluding, you remember that there was evidence. Because insurgents who were killed, their telephones were probed, and they were in contact with security officers while they were operating. That is to show we have accomplices within the security forces. And that is why when people are being attacked, some instruction will come from above, whoever it would be, to ensure that these people receive the worst kind of treatment before the security forces would come. That is one. Two, even after the attack, while lamenting, rather than coming to assist in some cases, we have lots of records, the security forces would come if any of their children decides to even fight back, they will be arrested. That is, the victim is now being victimized. This has happened over and over again. So the issue is, the system is already rotten. And thank God, the present government, having received the pressure from the US, has allowed the Americans to assist and collaborate with our government to ensure that this thing is halted. But the major work is for you and I to do the needful, rather than chickening out and pretend. Because sometimes when I hear people who know, who even suffered genocidal attacks in the area, saying that there is no genocide, I do laugh. There is genocidal attacks on Christian communities to displace them. In the northwest, there is genocidal attack against Muslim Hausas, indigenous Hausas. The jihad of which started in 1804, took over power. That is traditional institutions. But the land remained in the hands of the Hausas. Today the Hausas are also being killed and dispossessed of their land. So it has become multifaceted, but all the same. You look at the history, whether at how Islam started, it is the same trend, sir. It has not changed. So with Sharia, whether we like it or not, that's what will continue to happen, unless it is crushed. Negotiation will not work. Anybody who say non-kinetic, that is the funny terminology I've heard. Somebody who think that, one, if he kills, and if he dies trying to kill for his faith, he's going above to meet some beautiful facilities beyond what he gets here. It's here, it's in the mind. You can't change him through some non-kinetic something. He is out there to either kill or be killed. If somebody would voluntarily go and blow himself up just because he feels he's going to be rewarded, how do you solve the problem through some non-kinetic approach? So the issue is, this thing will not stop unless it is crushed.